Not that I have known that murder can sometimes smell like honeysuckle.
Hello, Contrarians listeners, Contrarians watchers, Contrarians fans. Here we are for the newest Contrarians warm-up. And this one is going to be about the movie Double Indemnity, a classic going back to the 40s and see what Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler can do, if they will be able to entice me to take the noir genre more seriously. Alex is kind of already there, but neither of us had watched Double Indemnity before this episode, so you're going to get some very fresh reactions. Speaking of fresh, I mean, this movie's fresh as 97% of the Tomatometer, so you know what to expect once you get to the episode on the main feed. We're going to tear it down.
Very historical legacy. Entertainment Weekly said it was number 50 on the 100 greatest movies of all time. That was back in 99.
Okay, that was before we got the
Nolan Batman trilogy.
Yes.
We read Ebert's review where he's just glowing about it. We get our the patron John Keating, who demanded it, offers his thoughts, and they are all extremely positive. And Julio, as you'll find out in the episode, really had to dig deep to find negative comments about it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what we're here for, to provide the balance. So, of course, Contrarians Corner is going to be all about us nitpicking Double Indemnity to death, and it will be fun. So, before you get to that, though, we're going to give you a few more Rotten Tomatoes quotes here, a little bit more trivia, and, of course, Josh Gad Minute. Josh Gad, black and white, wearing a fedora.
Oh, God, I forgot we got to get Josh Gad in this movie.
Yes. So, let's get started with that. We're going to start with the quotes. Brian Eggert from Deep Focus Reviews says, a cynical and shrewd motion picture full of wit and acid. This is a witty movie, Alex. Wit as I guess perceived in the 40s. And we do talk a little bit in Real Talk about how that might be not what people are used to now. The dialogue, the rapid fire dialogue, and the kind of like witty turns of phrase in the 40s can be head scratchers for younger generations today. And but I mean, that's still, I guess that's a staple. It's quick. Yeah. And that's just kind of like what people talk about in the 40s. But we have our own kind of wit here in the new millennium.
What is perceived as that now is what you get, like Linorama features on DVDs from movies like The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Superbad.
But let's say going to something that we've covered in the show and that you are very critical of, and I am partially critical of. Like, let's say something like Juno, right? That has dialogue that you could see how people that like it would point at it and be like, that is witty in the way that the Double Indemnity dialogue is witty. Like, you know,
I hope this is where the comparisons of Double Indemnity and Juno end.
But you know what I mean? Like, people don't talk like this, but it's fun to hear people talk like this. There's so many examples during Double Indemnity, and the one, of course, that comes to mind is the one that I think I mentioned in the episode, which is when Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck meet for the first time, and he starts hitting on her, and she warns him about the speed limit. She says, careful, the speed limit is 45 around here. And he said, well, how much was I doing? And she's like, about 90. He's like, am I going to get a ticket? She's like, maybe. He's like, what if I don't take it? Well, maybe I'll wrap your knuckles. It's like, oh, can I put my head on your shoulder and cry? And then she says, well, you can put your head on my husband's shoulder and cry.
Got him.
So that kind of stuff is like, yeah, nobody talks like that. Nobody's that like quick with the, you know, if you're flirting with someone, like there's no way it goes on for that long. By the same token, you know, nobody talks like they do in Juno or in I wouldn't put Judd Apatow. That's like riffing.
You're right. That's more from an improvisational perspective. Sorkin definitely has
excellent
rapid fire
example.
Dialogue.
And man, we need a Sorkin noir.
People don't talk like they do in Christopher Nolan movies, but that's from a different reason of writing.
Nor they should, but maybe we should all try to talk like Sorkin or like MacMurray and Stanwyck in those movies. Man, if I could be as rapid fire with my retorts as Frank MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity, it's just, You would need like a second co-host just to keep up with me. This is how we would go. All right. Next quote. Dorothy Moe from the Tampa Bay Times says, the story, ugly and grim in its realism, grips the audience, holding it spellbound throughout the film. Realistic, like grim in its realism? Do you think? I know we talk about how it was based on some sort of true crime, but
Yeah, we're going to get to that in a minute.
you watch this and you're like, yeah, this feels like the real world? Because I thought that it was the opposite. I thought that, you watch noir and you're like, this is fiction.
I guess because the real world we live in now is in many ways far more horrifying than that of 1947, but 44, excuse me. I mean, yeah, the idea of it is grim, like, and just, lust and money is
I
more
guess that
important
part,
than,
yeah. That's
but
realistic.
at the same time, when I think we talk about this a little bit in the episode, it's like it feels like a movie, like it, a big like to do of the time. It's not, I even though I really like that movie, I'd be way quicker to call a movie like Devil's Rejects grim and depressing in nature than Double Indemnity.
I guess my main thing is the plot, their scheme to get the insurance money. I think it makes sense and I buy it in the movie. If somebody told me that they were planning to do that in the real world, I would just laugh. I'm like, there's no way. What are you talking about? Like,
good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Would say, who takes trains anymore?
It all takes place in an Uber, not on a train.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Next quote. Patricia Simmons from the Washington Star. And she says, all told, as melodrama in an insurance office, it should turn out to be equally good insurance at the box office. Was it equally good insurance at the box office, Alex? Was this a big hit? Or is this one of those movies that, has achieved celebrity now, has a Criterion edition and everything, but it was not that big with audiences at the time?
So as goes with older movies like this, and also, we rely on our friends at Wikipedia a lot of the time to kind of fill in some knowledge gaps about movies that we have. What it says on Wikipedia is that the budget was $980,000 with a box office return of $5 million. Now, I tried to look at like Box Office Mojo, and that kind of gave me some conflicting information. But what I was able to find, maybe not an exact number to confirm, but it was a success at the box office.
So that's good. Frank MacMurray, Barbara Stanwyck, they were not blacklisted after this one.
This note here says it was a commercial hit, earning more than triple its production budget. So
good.
Yeah,
there you go.
Cutthroat Island, it was not.
Billy Wilder will direct again.
He will return.
Get him to the MCU. What was the MCU of the 40s? I think it was just like the studio system. To like bring him in here, he's gonna churn out like 5 more noirs because that's what he's good at now.
When was Elvis didn't start making movies till the 60s, late 50s? So yeah, that would have been the MCU of its day, where it's just Elvis will return and
we're gonna bring you over. Yeah, we're gonna bring you over for the next Elvis picture. Can you imagine? Can Elvis handle the rapid fire Wilder Chandler?
Dog, I told you, Jailhouse Rock, like of all the Elvis movies I've watched, which at this point is really sitting somewhere around 10. That's the one where he like actually like acts, and he's not just, hey, I'm down on my luck and I look really good, but I can sing. Like he beats a man to death in the opening scene of that movie, and he's like an asshole throughout it. And so my answer to your question is, obviously we will never know, but that's a very interesting thing to ponder because if I remember correctly, Elvis wanted to be an actor, not a singer, and it shows in that movie. And that's the one of the ones I've watched so far. That's the one that's like, man, someone probably could have done something with this. You get him and Marilyn Monroe. I know the timelines wouldn't really match up, but he did Some Like It Hot. There's just an alternate dimension, an alternate universe where there's some questions that are answered.
Yeah, Elvis has Jack Lemmon's career because he stars in.
Or Elvis just like, he gets sober, but he's already done that damage, so he just looks like Walter Matthau. What's the movie we've referenced? The Front Page.
Front Page.
Susan Sarandon and Elvis.
We're going to close the quotes with Noel Murray from the AV Club, who says, in spite of the mundane locations, the movie takes place just outside reality, in a land of stark shadows and snappy talk. It's a world of rotten people jumping at the chance to lose what soul they have left. That is, maybe, my favorite description of film noir. Rotten people jumping at the chance to lose whatever soul they have left. That is that describe whether I like it or whether I like a noir movie or not. I think that always holds true. These are just people that are not good. They're morally compromised to the extreme, and the movies are generally about them making one last terrible choice.
Yeah.
We're like, let's see what else happens. It's good. We fawned over Frank MacMurray over the episode more than we did about Barbara Stanwyck. I was thinking about this in the days since we recorded, and I felt a little bad because we say that they're both just as good, but I think that maybe because I was expecting her to be good and I didn't know anything about Frank MacMurray, then that I was more surprised by him. But
it's his movie too.
Right.
Stanwyck is there and tremendous, but Fred MacMurray's like in every scene.
Yeah. Also, I think, we're both heterosexual males, so we can identify with the plight of the dude that just makes terrible decisions because he is
being led by his small head.
Yes, exactly. But, we're talking about morally compromised people. And I know we do touch on it a little bit on the episode, but just the idea that with Barbara Stanwyck, you're not in her head in the movie. So you never know how much of what she's saying is sincere. Like, does she really care for this guy, or is she playing him the entire time?
It's a killing joke. Like, we don't know what's true with her and what's not.
Every person, every insurance salesman that goes into her house gets a completely different story.
That's the thing that's cut from the end of the movie, was she was like, but who knows what's true? Sometimes I tell it this way, and other times I tell it this way.
You want to know how I got this anklet?
Boo.
All right. Well, before we go into trivia, let's decolorize Josh Gad. Let's drain all the shades of color from him and plop him here in the 1940s. Alex, where would you cast Josh Gad in the Josh Gad Minute?
So there's a couple roles here. He's not Nino.
I was gonna say he's not old enough to play Nino.
All right. So Keyes would be too obvious. And Edward G. Robinson's awesome in this movie, so I don't want to take him away. So it comes down to two parts. He could be Jackson, which is the guy who sees MacMurray on the train. He sees Walter.
That's even more obvious. I
think the real money would be he's Norton. He's the guy that tries to accost Phyllis and gets motherfucked by Edward G. Robinson. Because he
Phyllis
just has that. Then afterwards, Edward G. Robinson reads him the riot act for being an idiot and cites all those stats. So my thought would be, because Norton only has that one scene, but it's a really big moment of acting, to try to pull this off. So I think if we put Josh Gad in here, he would be Norton. Because then also, it changes appearance a little bit, have him kind of more sweaty and kind of a bit disheveled. His desk is messy, and I think there's a chance for not belly laughs, but a knowing smile, as they say.
And just you go with the journey of the movie, right? At first, he seems to be looming, towering over her as he hits her with all these things that he thinks he's figured out. And then the pleasure of seeing Barbara Stanwyck. It's pleasurable enough right now when she just lays down the law to Kurt Fuller's noir counterpart. But to see her do it to Josh Gad would be even more enjoyable, I think, because you can see Gad just kind of fall apart and be comedic there. No argument there. The guy in the train would be too easy. That is such a Josh Gad role that it would feel almost like cheating, So,
fair enough.
All right, Josh Gad, congratulations! You're part of a Billy Wilder film noir. So good on you. Now let's go to trivia, Alex.
So we talked about the financials of this, or at least the reported financials that we have access to. Paramount Pictures, that old school Paramount signature opening, just beautiful. Directed by Billy Wilder, written by Billy Wilder and Raymond Chandler. The screenplay of it, of course, this was based on Double Indemnity, an American journalist turned novelist, James Cain penned crime novel. talk a little bit about the contentious relationship between Wilder and Chandler in the episode itself. We talk about this movie's historical legacy, and like Julio said, it's got a Criterion, and like information about it is pretty easily accessible. It's not like I found something like Jack Nicholson was originally in the running for this role or whatnot, but I did want to talk about, because we found this out in the episode and Julio was very intrigued by it, what Double Indemnity is based upon loosely.
Mm-hmm.
That was the murder of Albert Snyder. And again, we're relying on our friends at Wikipedia for this. May Ruth Brown met Albert Edward Snyder in 1915 in New York City when she was 20 years old and he was a 33-year-old artist. The couple had little in common. Brown, who went by her middle name Ruth, to most people was known as Tommy to close friends, described as a vivacious and gregarious, while Snyder was described as very reserved and a homebody, so you can relate to that. Despite their differences in personalities and age, the couple married and settled in the modest house in Queens. In 1918, Ruth gave birth to their only child, a daughter named Lorraine. Albert Snyder worked as an art editor for Motorboating magazine, published for most of its run by Hearst magazines, and made $100 a week. In 1925, Ruth began an affair with Henry Judd Gray, a married corset salesman who lived in the New Jersey suburbs. Just love like these jobs. I mean,
you don't meet many corset salesmen.
Yeah, exactly. Like an editor at a magazine, that's obviously a noble job that really doesn't exist anymore. But like that's so 1920s. This guy just has his mansion and he's a corset salesman. She began to plan the murder of her husband Albert, enlisting Gary's help, but he was reluctant. Some claim that Ruth's distaste for her husband apparently began when he insisted on hanging a picture of his late fiancée, Jessie Bouchard, on the wall of their first home and named his boat after her.
Red flag.
They left this out in Double Indemnity. Bouchard, whom Albert described to Ruth as, quote, the finest woman I've ever met, had been dead for 10 years. Imagine telling, like, your wife, like, hey, you were the second round pick. However, others have noted that Albert Snyder was emotionally and physically abusive, blaming Ruth for the birth of the daughter rather than the son, demanding a perfectly maintained home and physically assaulting both her and her daughter Lorraine when his demands were not met. Ruth first persuaded Albert to purchase insurance, and with the assistance of her insurance agent, who was subsequently fired and sent to prison for forgery, signed a $48,000 life insurance policy that paid extra if the unexpected act of violence killed the victim. According to Gray, Ruth had made at least 7 attempts to kill Albert, all of which he survived. How did he not like figure out, like, at the very least, I should be like questioning my luck as of late.
That's like a Roadrunner cartoon at that point.
Yeah. It's like that Simpsons where Homer keeps trying to injure himself and just keeps failing. He goes to the construction site and he's like just waiting for something to fall on him. And like this wheelbarrow of cinder blocks falls on this guy next to him. And he's like, probably better that didn't hit me. On March 20th, 1927, the couple garroted Albert with a picture wire. As I just learned, garroted is a phrase, or garrote is strangulation. That's fucking metal. Stuffed his nose full of chloroform-soaked rags and beat him with a sash weight, then staged his death as part of a burglary. Detectives at the scene noted that the burglar left little evidence of breaking into the house. Moreover, Ruth's behavior was inconsistent with her story of a terrorized wife witnessing her husband being killed. Police discovered that the property Ruth had claimed to have been stolen was in the house still, but hidden.
Come on.
I know, even this is 100 years ago, but come on. A breakthrough came when a detective found a paper with letters to JG on it. It was a memento Albert had kept from former lover Bouchard and asked Ruth about it. A flustered Ruth's mind immediately turned to Gray, whose initials were also JG, and she asked the detective what Gray had to do with the murder. So there you go.
God, some people are just not cut out for
No. It was the first time Gray had been mentioned, and police instantly became suspicious. Gray was found in Syracuse, New York. He claimed that he had been there all night, but it was found out that a friend of his had set up Gray's room at a hotel to support his alibi. Gray proved far more forthcoming than Ruth about his actions. He was caught, returned to Queens, and charged along with Ruth. This is that Office episode where Michael's trying to keep it a secret that Stanley's having an affair, and he answers the phone. What's up, Cynthia?
this story, like Double Indemnity, is obviously like the Billy Wilder version of this. But if you didn't change anything when you adapted it, it would be a Coen Brothers movie.
Oh, it's a comedy. Yeah, it's that's exactly right. Frances McDormand, of course, would play Ruth.
Right, and William H. Macy would be the
money. During the trial, Ruth and Gray turned on each other, contending the other was responsible for killing Albert, but both were convicted and sentenced to death. At Sing Sing in Osing, New York, that many legends about that facility. And on January 12th of 1928, she became the first woman to be executed at Sing Sing since Martha Place in 1899.
Jesus.
And the third woman to be executed by the state of New York. She went to the electric chair 10 minutes before Judd Gray, her former lover. And there's a pretty perverse photo of her mid-execution that was in the New York Daily News.
They took a picture of her being electrocuted?
Yeah. I mean, and it looks like it's on the Wikipedia page. Ruth Snyder's mid-execution photo taken by Tom Howard and published the next day in the New York Daily News. And, you know, it's still 1928, so they don't have fucking Instagram filters, but it looks like an album cover or like a poster for a horror movie. Like, it's very primitive, and it doesn't look like the big like headset on like you'd see on the cartoons and stuff, but it's pretty terrifying. That is how we got Double Indemnity in the end.
There's no graphic execution at the end of the movie. There's a very bloodless shot. I guess 3 shots, like gunshots. They're not gonna make the album cover of any type of band.
Movie came out in 1944. When was the novel released? Novel was released in 1943. So about 15-year gap between the actual crime being committed. I love the idea of James M. Cain reading about this in the paper and being like, I will have this made. This will be my... And the turnaround of that, too, of the book to the movie just a year later. So...
Wasn't really even wild. Published, and Billy Wilder was already like putting down the gallows. It's like, oh,
got the advanced copy and was like, we're off to the races. He called his buddies at Paramount and was like, do I have a deal for you? Yeah, to me, that was the most interesting thing we could cover here, because we kind of get into everything else in the actual episode. We talk about the numerous Academy Awards it was nominated for but did not win, and et cetera, et cetera. But Julio, now we know the tale of Ruth Snyder and how it led us to Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck. So there you go.
Hilarious tale
Stanwyck,
of Ruth Snyder and its horrifying ending. Yes.
That would be the Coen Brothers title, because it would be something really long.
Yes.
Yeah. The hilarious tale of Ruth Snyder and the violent ending.
The final shot of the movie is that picture of her being executed, and then the credits roll over that picture as some songs playing. We got your number, Coen Brothers. We know how you play now.
We can break it down in an instant. So that was Double Indemnity. For our thoughts on the movie proper, just be sure to check out the episode, because we definitely had a good time recording it.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, so thank you, as always, for checking this out, checking this video, checking the podcast. If you want to get ready for the next installment, and you will need the time because this is a 3-hour-long movie, check out Vikram, an Indian epic. I think it's a spy thriller, Alex, just based on the trailer. And if you are just now getting into Indian cinema because of the popularity and success of RRR at the Oscars earlier this year, last year, then this is, I'm guessing, something like that. We've been dabbling on Indian movies on our Patreon channel. So in a way, this is just the next step to talk about one on the main feed. But it is, I want to say it's rotten with the critics and fresh with the audience. So we'll probably be being charitable towards it on the first half and then real on the second half. Whatever the case, watch Vikram, watch Double Indemnity, check out the episodes, and thank you for being here.
Take care.